Mic check. 1 2 1 2 1 2. What is up, my beautiful people? It's your girl Rosabelle, and welcome. For those of you who are new here, hit that subscribe button, the follow, the like, the share, wherever you see this, wherever you're listening to this. And welcome. Welcome to my mind. Welcome to my feelings. Welcome to my space. I'm in my element. I'm in a space where I like to kick my shoes off and put my feet up, put my robe on, take my pants off, because pants are dumb, and just kick back, relax. I want to unwind from my day, unfold, and unplug. Hell yeah.
Good afternoon, Rosabelle.
Good afternoon, my queen.
What are we talking about today?
Today we talking about Martin Luther King, y'all.
Martin Luther King. It is the day that we're posting this. Martin Luther King Day, ain't it?
It is.
Sure is.
Yeah. Damn. Then it's the first time in forever that I actually get the day off. So thank you, my brother. Did he say free at last, free at last? Yeah, I'm free from work today.
He sure did. So I thought maybe today we can talk about Martin Luther King Day, what it means to us. Maybe not so much facts and, all that, because Google can do that for us. But more, why do you think it's important that we celebrate it? Not all jobs get it off, but schools mostly get it off, and some jobs do celebrate it. Why do we feel like that is?
You know what? I don't know. I always feel like I had like mixed opinions on this growing up.
Okay.
I will say that I really didn't even start learning about Black history because this is very much so Black history. I mean, yeah, he's a big part, a little bit more mainstream than some other people, some other notable people in Black history, but nonetheless, it's Black history. I feel like I didn't even really start learning it until like fourth, fifth grade.
Really?
Yeah, and I mean, I went to a school fourth grade. We really hit Black history hard, like eyes on the prize, reading a ton of Black books. I mean, I went to Black schools at that time, anyway. And I don't know. I feel like fourth grade was when it really turned up, and I guess I never really understood. The same thing with President's Day. I never really understood Martin Luther King Day.
Okay.
Martin Luther King was amazing, but I never understood the celebration of the day.
So, first and foremost, Martin Luther King Day falls right around my birthday. Of course, it's the celebration of his actual birthday, but it's celebrated on the first or second Monday of the month? Second Monday of the month. So it usually falls right around my birthday. And I thought that was so interesting when I was young, before I really knew what it was for. I was just like, oh, I get an extra day off school for my birthday, But to be honest, I remember doing Black History Month in school as far back as I can remember. I don't remember a time when I didn't do Black History Month. The school that I went to growing up was majority Black, but I don't think that it was a public school. So I don't think that it was because of the school that I went to. I think it was just the district overall was trying to be more inclusive, which, that's awesome. So I know when I was younger, they talked a lot about the nonviolent civil rights movement. And that was kind of the big thing with Martin Luther King, right? And of course, when you're young, you don't really understand what that means. But today, I think that has a lot of significance, because we are still kind of seeing the retrospect of it, but we also, in the past few years, have seen some not so nonviolent civil rights activists, and it's been crazy the way that things have unfolded. And I think that Martin Luther King Day is more important now than it has ever been.
That's very true.
And
he was very peaceful.
Yeah. I think it's important to acknowledge that all the things that he gained and how they still kind of ring today, how we got here, and how he used his education and his determination, his unwillingness to fold, to really get the things that he wanted for his community.
Mm-hmm.
The whole movement in general. Of course, Martin Luther King was not the only activist, but he is the one, that the holiday is about,
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that that was so interesting. And I think that it's really important today because we're seeing a lot of kids who want to see change, they deserve change. Change is necessary. It's just the way that we're going about it these days is
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily right.
Mm-mm. I get that. And I wanted to I like what you said that maybe I was just a little too young to understand it because we celebrated back Black History Month.
Mm-hmm.
We did had like different. We had a Black History Month program,
Okay.
and each class would do something different. My favorite was second grade where we walked out to this song. It's a Stevie Wonder song, "Misrepresented People," and we did a fashion show to that song.
No way.
And it was so dope, just
That's
walking out
cute.
as different characters. I remember one year I was Mary McLeod Bethune. I was in kindergarten. Inserts picture here because the picture is so fucking cute.
Oh my god.
I'm standing next to Mae Jemison. There was a few other people in that picture that I can't remember, but I do remember always celebrating it. But I think that I didn't really understand it until I got older.
Yeah.
I really, really didn't fully dive into it until college. I took
Yeah.
the Black Experience classes, 1954 to present. I took a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that they were absolutely amazing. And I felt like it was curriculum that should be taught
Oh
in
yeah.
schools, like not just Black History Month. As we're talking about the timeline of our history, that also falls in the timeline,
Mm-hmm.
not just in February.
Right.
Um, so I thought that I think that's pretty interesting to kind of reflect on. It's like, dang, okay, looking back at it now when you're older, you do have a different understanding. But I have to agree with the violence um, these days.
Mm-hmm.
Like the movements or what we do to try to get what we want is not really um, effective. It's not how Martin Luther King did it. It's not really
Right.
how he envisioned it when he was fighting for his community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can see that it'd be really important to have this day for us, just kind of like as a gentle reminder for what we've what we've been through and how we can handle things.
A day of peace.
Yeah, it's definitely a day of peace.
I think that it's important to not only acknowledge that, but um, let's be clear. There's been discrepancies on both sides. Like nobody is doing perfect right now, and the civil rights that people are asking for are, something that they deserve for sure. But we just have to be really careful about how we do it because it's easy for somebody to say like, "Oh, it was deserved because of a certain action," or that you earned whatever. But I don't know. I think it's just really important that we take a day of peace and really evaluate what the goals are, civil rights wise in general, not even just like races, but also ethnicities and genders and, you know, sexual orientation, all of that. There's such a big discrepancy these days. And there's also just like a fire under people to get the things that they think are right. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I think that that's right. I think that there's definitely discrepancies that need to be solved. It's just, in my opinion, really important that today, of all days, we think about what is the best way to achieve our goals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that Martin Luther King set a very clear path for us to follow. And I think that he really did pave the way, not just for one type of movement, but for all
Mm-hmm.
types of movements. And the fact that what he did still rings today speaks volumes. So that's kind of how I feel about Martin Luther King Day. That's what I think is so important about it. Of course, I'm sure in schools, kids will be doing cute crafts and, telling their parents about, different Black history figures and all that fun stuff. But it's important to take it back to the lessons too.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right when you said that, like as a kid, you can't really understand that
Mm-hmm.
because for the most part, our parents do try to shield us from, the violence and the problems, especially in the news. Um, but at the same time, it's important for kids to know how did we get where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can tell you, I've heard stories from just my grandparents about segregation and about how, white people versus black people and like the different water fountains and like they remember that stuff. That's just my grandparents. That wasn't even that long ago.
No, not at all.
Right. If we could say that for pretty much all movements, right? The amount
Mm-hmm.
of change that we've seen in the last 10, 20, 50, or whatever years has been astronomical, and it's really cool to see. It's a
It
cool
is.
time to be alive.
It is a cool time to be alive, and we're at a space where we can actually, we still have these people, these generations around, right? That we can actually talk to and learn from and hear these stories from,
Mm-hmm.
which I love. I love that. I love being 30. Above all the pain, I love being able to be in that in between where I'm old enough to understand, and I can also listen and get that wisdom from you, and
Mm-hmm.
just hear and really remember where we came from, and hopefully understand how to make better decisions so we can get to where we want to be or need to be.
Right.
Um, I say we as a community, because
Right.
it's not just us. It's not just here in Ohio. It's not just here, wherever you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's us nationwide. You know, this is still a very systemic issue, and
Mm-hmm.
it's worse in some places than other.
Right.
Thank goodness I only live in Ohio sometimes, because things are crazy. But
Yeah.
it is. It's a good day. It's a good day to reflect and remember. I appreciate you for that.
Martin Luther King Day has been one of my favorite holidays since childhood. Before, I guess it was for not the best reason. But, as children, you don't really understand. But honestly, it kind of did grow with me, right? Because maybe that's, the start of something, but I did end up going into social work where I am fighting for justice for people literally every day. I'm fighting for people's rights and what they deserve in my own role though. You know what I mean? Like once you get into social work, you kind of get into like a niche, an area of expertise, so to speak. And when I was in school, I did think that it would be a lot about minorities and not necessarily just African Americans, but there's lots of minorities in the area of Ohio where we live. Um, but just like over time, I guess it kind of leaned more towards the incarcerated people. But I mean, it could be said that, incarcerated people or people just generally in the criminal justice system also deal with the kind of negligence that comes with
Mhm.
racism and even if it's not intentional racism or discrimination, the biases are still there regardless. And it's good to be a person who can give a gentle reminder um, that they're there. And that's something that we need to look for and something that we need to maybe take a deep breath and think our thoughts through before we act,
Mhm.
you know, regardless of whether that's from a client standpoint or a professional in the field or whoever. And so somehow, I guess it did follow me, didn't it?
It did follow you. That's a good story to your journey. Don't forget that story when you're down the road and you're teaching somebody or mentoring some future social
I
workers.
never will.
Talk about that story. That's nice. I like the perspective that you put on the holiday.
Yeah. And it's followed you too, because you're part of the African American group in your company. And I'm sure that you guys are doing things too to further equality within your own company, you know?
Yeah, first and foremost, this year we last year we raised money for the Boys and Girls Club. So here, I think next week, because January is flying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is it next week? This week? One of these weeks, soon, we'll be presenting that to the foundation for everything that we did, and we are starting our year again.
Okay.
Kind of closing out some of the stuff last year. We were supposed to do this last year, but things happen, things change, weather happens.
Yeah.
Um, so we finally get the chance to kind of close out our last year goals and set new goals for this year. I
Mm-hmm.
will say that the Black Employees Network is pretty dope. I haven't had the chance to explore it much due to being new, and also again it being closer to the end of the year
Mm-hmm.
when I really started getting involved. So things were just kind of really closing out. But as we have all of these things coming up this year, Black History Month,
Mm-hmm.
Juneteenth, and all of the, it's not only just about being Black, but also giving back to the community. More notably, our community,
Mm-hmm.
um, because we do struggle every day just because of the color of our skin. I mean, we're diverse, we're integrated way more than what we used to be, what, 60, 70 years ago? Because at this point, 70, thinking about my parents, wow. they were small in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
So 70 years ago, it's really not that far away.
Yeah. When our parents were young, um, it was impossible for them to do basic things like, get bank accounts and public transit. And, so we really have gone such a long way in the past, so many years. And what I think is so interesting is, and this kind of leads into the topic that we're going to talk about next week, is there are generational changes that we're seeing, are astronomical from one to the next, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's really hard for us to acknowledge the changes and the things that our past generations have done for us because we grew up that way. We're used to that.
Right.
So it's really important for us to like reflect back and think, when my mom, was the age that I am now, it was difficult for her to even to get a bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Or when my grandmother was my age now, they were still completely segregated. I remember my grandma telling me a story about when, like, the first time she ever saw a black person, and it was like crazy to her at the time. And then, as she got older, she lived in a majority black neighborhood, and those were her friends, and she, treated them as equals because that's what they are, and that's truly what they were to her. But that's not how she grew up. She was part of the movement that fought for that. And my mom was part of the movement that fought for, like women's rights and stuff like that. And today we're fighting still more for more things. And I think the generation that comes after us also has a little bit of fire under their asses. And they're going to fight pretty hard too,
That generation that come after us going to be some heat because they're also the generation who is kind of, I don't really want to say putting us in check, but they're doing their homework and they're reading about their history and they're coming together more.
They have so much more access to information than we did,
I agree.
Because we kind of grew up with the internet, but not really. I don't know about you, but we didn't have an internet computer in my home until I was at least in middle school, maybe high school. And even then, it was brand new. Nobody really knew how to look up information like that, Certainly we weren't even trying to, we were just playing games on like Nickelodeon.com or something. But these days, kids have access to way more information for the good or for the better, sometimes for the worse. But they can look up history and they can look up the things that, past generations have put out there for them to see. And it's interesting that they're so fiery about it, which in a way is good, but in other ways is bad. Just, they need to just be a little careful and remember Martin Luther King's message.
We're trying.
Because I'd hate to see them be one of my clients one day.
Oh, yeah. We want to keep everybody out of that realm.
Right. But I mean, if I'm being honest with you, a lot of the people who are in my facility right now for big crimes, like the big F1s, the murders and that stuff, a lot of them are Gen X's. And that's sad. It's really sad. But
Gen X like the people before us, Gen X?
After us.
Oh, okay.
Gen Z.
Yes.
What am I doing?
I don't know. You're going backwards, girl. Gen X is going to be the ones that's in office soon.
Yeah.
We can't talk that type of politics on this show, but...
No, maybe one day we'll talk about politics, but I don't think I have the heart for it today. Yeah, so let's just, remember Martin Luther King's message and use it to the best of our ability. Because to be honest, his message still rings true today. And the things that we need are still here, So, going about it in his way, I think is very important. So, in your opinion, what makes Martin Luther King different than the other advocates who were in the civil rights movement? Because it's his day. It's not the civil rights movement day.
It is his day. I don't know his approach. Everybody's approach is different. His approach was different.
Okay.
That's a good question, though.
I'm good at that.
It is. I know. I feel like everybody was in their community in their own way, doing the footwork. He wasn't just a he wasn't just a speaker, just
Mm-hmm.
speaking. He went out, he sought, he fought.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that his ambition and determination kind of set him apart
Okay.
from the other activists.
Mm-hmm.
I know, don't judge me, y'all. I need to brush up. It's been a long week. So, and I know it's only the beginning of the week, but I'm telling y'all, it's been a long week already. But I do. I
Okay.
think that that's some of the things that would set him apart from other activists. Now,
Okay.
not Black History Month, but favorite activist, we got to talk about Mr. Malcolm. But we gonna let Martin have his day today, and we'll trickle that into Black History Month.
I think that when people think about Martin Luther King, the first thing that they think of is like the I Have a Dream speech, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that did make him famous, right? I think that's probably what made him so popular. But I think the thing that kept him famous, because let's be super clear, being famous and staying famous are very different, um, is that when he said that he was part of the movement, he did not lie. He had been in prison several times.
Yep.
He had his boots on the ground with the other activists doing whatever marches they were doing. He was standing behind people who needed support. He was in the South over and over and over again, doing the things that he needed to do. He was at Washington, D.C. when it was time to be there, and he was saying the words that needed to be said. Now, additionally, I think the fact that he's so well spoken was, a major turning point for African American activism as a whole.
Yes, because we weren't even allowed to be educated. Let's be very clear with that.
Right,
My
right,
grandfather can't read.
right,
I mean, he's in his late 80s, but he can't read.
right,
Never could.
right.
So I mean, for him to speak how he's spoken, not only just speaking, but he's able to grab a room.
Mm-hmm,
Just with the sound of his voice, the way he carries his words. I do think
mm-hmm,
that's something very powerful that really also makes Martin stand out.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that, the well-spokenness, the title one of doctor, makes him look more practical. But isn't that, in a way, kind of an ethnocentric look at the African American view, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like the white view on the African American movement.
True.
You know what I mean? Like, there probably were other people who were doing more substantial things, or maybe more speeches, or were on the ground more often, maybe arrested more often, more whatever, however you want to measure it. But the fact of the matter is the holiday was made a federal holiday by a white president, and so however those tables have turned, it is an ethnocentric look from the white perspective. And there were so many other people. So I guess on this day, I would also encourage people to look into other people, who had made a difference, and don't just look in your history textbooks, because those are ethnocentric as well. But
That is definitely true. There are free apps with a library card that you can use, and you can have full access to your local libraries. I love Overdrive. There's Libby,
mm-hmm,
um, and just to kind of get you away from that textbook feel, you should be able to find more authentic history information there.
right. And additionally, like, just a Google search. If you just start like on, let's say, Dr. King's Wikipedia page, I'm sure there are resources that link you at the bottom of the page to other activists or other, like, maybe walks that he was involved in or whatever, that could give you more idea of other people who participated. Because, if we did it from books alone, I think that that's like one author's perspective. If you start with like the internet or Wikipedia, anybody can contribute to those things. And so Black people in general just have a bigger voice when you're online.
Anybody can contribute to those things, so also be careful.
Yeah,
Practice what you
definitely.
learn in school about your research, honey, and just make sure that what you're reading is like real and not something that somebody from a far one side or a far other side wrote just because they can.
Yeah, we could talk about that all day. We could talk about, the polarization of politics and newspapers and whatever. Just generally speaking, I don't suggest people get their news from the newspaper, especially if it's one that's, far left or far right. Get your shit from the middle. Because of, they always say, one person has one side of the story, one person has another side of the story, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. You know what I mean?
Yep.
The fact of the matter is the newspapers are doing what they need to do to get you to click on that link.
Yep.
It doesn't mean it's true.
Clickbait.
But I do think that just generally speaking, the internet can be a good resource for, Black history, other history too. It doesn't have to be one way or another. People I think should look into their history in general, or the history of maybe the location that they're at, or their gender identity, or their sexual orientation, or their ethnicity, or whatever, because it gives you a sense of belonging.
It does.
And I think that Dr. King gave an entire generation of African American people a sense of belonging, a sense of like, this is my country too.
This is a
snaps for Dr. King.
Because yes, I agree. All in all, he really did give people a sense of hope. Their stories all the time, heard stories all the time, not as much anymore. Heard stories all the time from people. When again we keep talking about Black history because he's Black, but when you think about Black history, Martin Luther King is one of the first people that come up for a lot of people.
Right.
And just with my parents being the age that they are, and then their friends and people around them also experiencing that, yeah, that's true. He did. He really did give a sense of hope for a better future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there were probably many people at the time who were maybe too afraid to stand up, or maybe didn't feel as though it was their place. And I'm just here to say loud and clear to anybody who feels that way that America is a place for everybody. America is a place for everybody, no matter what color you are, no matter who you are, what you think, what you feel. As long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, this is your country too. I mean, I guess those people as well, but they're not as nice.
Boo, you're not.
Stop.
Boo, you suck.
No. And I think Dr. King paved the way for many people to feel that way. He did a lot of paving. Very brave man. Admiral, indeed. So, I mean, any closing remarks?
Shout out to you, Dr. Martin Luther King, wherever you are. If you can hear this, shout out to you. We are still thanking you and celebrating you every day.
Every day. I think that it's important. And thank you for talking about Dr. King with me today.
Thank you. I appreciate you talking to me, even though I do need to brush up. But Black History Month, I got y'all. That's it. I got y'all Black History Month. I'm working on myself, okay?
Make sure you tune in to Photography by Rosabelle for Black History Month. We got some projects coming up very soon.
We do, yes. Interviewing Black-owned business. If you are Black and you have a business or know somebody that does, go ahead and tag them where you can see or hear this podcast. Well, I guess if you can only hear it and you can't comment, then you can follow us on Facebook or any other social media platform at Yep, I'm Rosabelle, and let us know. Let us know about these Black-owned businesses because I am ready to interview. I'm ready to interview y'all. I want to know all about you. It's our month, so tell me.
It's important during Black History Month to celebrate people, to lift Black voices. Let's say that, And so we'll start today with Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and we'll continue this conversation into February, I'm sure.
As always, thank you for being with me. I appreciate y'all. Y'all know y'all worthy every single day. Don't let anybody tell you that you ain't worthy because you can do anything that you put your mind to.
Love you. Bye.